everybody. Welcome back to OkashiCon Online. We are so happy to be back with you. I hope that you are going to have a wonderful experience with us on this Sunday afternoon. And I'd like to thank everyone for the patience during the months that I was away. As you may have known, my parents both had health problems, and so I had to fly out to North Carolina for a couple months and look after them. My mom had surgery, my dad had a new diagnosis and isn't able to drive. So I'm an only child, so that was on me to take care of. And unfortunately, because of that, I was not able to broadcast because I didn't have all my equipment and things with me. But I am now back, and we are now back to our regular schedule with OkashiCon Online, at least for my presentations. And so today is the fourth Sunday of the month, and on the fourth Sunday of the month, we do Japan Stories, which is my video podcast about traveling to Japan and Japanese cultural items. I will say that now that we can't travel, it's a little bit nostalgic and can be a little bit sad to look back on things that we had a lot of fun and excitement doing in the past, but we can certainly look forward to the future. We're hoping that by next spring we'll be able to travel to Japan again, but today's topic in particular are things that you can take advantage of even if you can't travel. So hang tight, we'll get into it in just a moment. I also would like to say that on the second Tuesday of the month, I do Make Your Monday, which hopefully we can craft something to make your Mondays a little bit more special. And this particular coming Monday or coming episode will be November 8th. And I'm going to be revising my Eat a Bag decorations program. You may remember that I did it before OkashiCon Online last year, but we didn't actually happen to record that. We found that out afterwards. We hadn't managed to hit the record button. So we will be revising that. And also I have new tips, new tricks, new Eat-A-Bags to show you. So if you are interested in that kind of thing, I would definitely come back. It's going to be at 7:30 p.m. on Monday, November 8th here at the OkashiCon Twitch. So certainly look forward to that. And today we are talking about auspicious items. I have a whole bunch of things to show you. I have physical items, I have photos, I have videos, and they've changed our technology a little bit while we've been gone. So we're kind of getting used to the software. We may have some delays as we're trying to like bring up the right file and things like that. So please bear with us a little bit today. Part of it also, I'm not in the best of health, and so I wasn't quite as prepared as I'd wanted to be as far as having gotten all the videos uploaded in the right place so that my director could help me. So any mistakes that happen today are all on me. They're not my director's fault. It is entirely my responsibility and something that I just kind of messed up on. So apologies, but I think we'll be okay. And I know that you are all a very patient audience, and I know that you can bear with me a little bit. But for starters, let's go ahead and pull up my slides. Let me see if I can get that. I think we have the slides there. There we go. So obviously, today we are talking about blessings and luck, and I'm going to be talking about items that you can usually purchase at temples and shrines, although sometimes you can get them somewhere else, and I'll also explain why the word purchase isn't really technically accurate. But let me see. Ooh, now I got it. I have so many windows open. I have to make sure I'm in the right windows so that I can move my slides around. But all the things that we're talking about today have some kind of auspicious nature to them, whether it is religious or superstitious. We're going to be talking about those. A lot of these, because of the pandemic, it used to be that you had to travel to a temple or a shrine in Japan to acquire them because they are meant as a symbol that you have been to that place. It's both a souvenir and a blessing coming from that particular place. But because they had so many states of emergencies and things have closed down, they only recently came out of the most recent state of emergency, but about 10 days ago. As a result of that, they have started to offer these available on the internet. We just have a spammer on the Twitch channel, so we'll just ignore that. I would like to remind you all that if you do want to talk to us live during this presentation, please have a free Twitch account. You don't have to pay any money for it. You can't, if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, you actually can get a free subscription. So if there's ads that show up, you won't see any of the ads. We can talk about that later. I don't want to nag you, but remember that OkashiCon is a nonprofit, and we do really appreciate if you do get this free subscription, we really appreciate you using it for us. But let's get back to the original topic. Today, I'm going to talk about things that have some kind of meaning to give you luck or protection, maybe health. They're wishing you some kind of benefit. And First I need to get into the terminology. So maybe we want to have this where that we switch the camera so that the slide is small and this is more on my face, because I'm going to be talking about this just for a little bit. Because there are some topics that I think are kind of important for us to address before we get started. And the main thing is this I'm talking about at all religious? Is it weird for me to own some of this if I don't subscribe to that religion? These are all concepts that we should probably get this elephant in the room out of the way first. And the most important thing for you to note is that a lot of these terminology and concepts, we may talk about words like kami, which gets translated as gods. We may talk about things like prayer. These are all Western words that have been applied to things in a non-Western culture. And they don't necessarily translate as accurately as they should. And I think that's important for us to keep in mind. So in the 19th century, when Americans opened up Japan forcibly with guns and cannons and things like that and said, hey, you have to let us in, they then went over and they started writing books about Japan, and they started trying to explain to people back home what these things are like. And they didn't have terminology to really explain what was going on in these temples and in these shrines. And in fact, even the words temples and shrines are Western concepts that they tried to borrow and make it fit what the audience at home, usually England, sometimes Portugal, make what the audience at home could understand. And I think that is a huge disservice to the entire sort of spiritual community in Japan, but it's what we're working with. And so there are a lot of limitations. I will be using those Western terms just because it's easier for us to communicate, and I don't really have a better alternative. I will try as best I can to explain them, but it's really important to note that I am not an expert. I was not raised in Japan. I do not practice these spiritual practices, and it's very important for you to look at outside sources if this is a topic that you are particularly interested in. If you would like to dive into that, drop me an email at some point and I can give you additional resources. I do have them available, but I don't want to dive too deeply into that right now. Important things to note just while we're talking here is that there is a difference between a temple and a shrine. A shrine is usually associated with Shinto. Now, I have on the slide religion ? Because we call it a religion in the West, but if you talk to priests of the Shinto religion, 60% of them say, it's not a religion. What are you talking about? You've just given us the label of religion. It is a spiritual practice. Also, when we talk about temples, that's usually Buddhist. And if you are familiar with Buddhism and all, you know that that is a huge umbrella practiced by about 1 billion people around the world. And it is as varied and different from one group to another as if you're talking about Christianity. So there are two main types of Buddhism that are most often practiced in Japan, but those are very different than, say, what the Dalai Lama practices, what Tibetan Buddhism, what Thai Buddhism may be. So I think it's really important to understand that you can't use these Western terms and apply them as a one-size-fits-all word onto them. And I really don't want you to kind of be hung up on the religious distinctions between, oh, well, is this similar to something that I understand from my personal religion or from a religion that I may have grown up with, because they just aren't quite the same thing. And I know I didn't do a very good job of explaining that. I would be happy to answer any questions or comments. Please drop them in the chat. If you start getting confused, I will do my best to explain them. But again, I am not an expert. I will say, however, that unless I mention something specifically, all of these items that are available for anyone, whether or not they are a believer or a practitioner of those particular spiritual practices. So I am not going to lead you down the road of something that is going to, that they're going to be really offended that you have acquired this item and taken it home with you to the West. Generally speaking, they want you to do that because it is their goodwill and good wishes for you. And a lot of times, when they're talking about going to a temple or a shrine and using the term prayer, we can also think of it as a wish. So they'll translate it in the same way. And a lot of even Japanese people, when they're going there to make a wish. It's not that they necessarily think that there is, a particular individual, especially when we're talking about Buddhism, that they're talking to a deity or an entity, not in the way that we think of prayer in the Western sense, or certainly the Christian and Judaic sense. You're not talking to that particular thing. You may be in a particular instance, but it really doesn't translate in the same way. So there are ways that you can be respectful and that you can experience the culture and experience the activities from these locations without sort of being disloyal to your own personal religion. I don't want you to think of it that way. Think of it as a place where you can practice religion if you wish to, as opposed to when you're at that place, you have to practice the spiritual practices. Again, that's really not even saying it correctly. Hopefully it will be a little bit clearer as we go on. This is a very thorny topic, and it's something that we would spend probably an entire week on if we wanted to go into more deeply. But I just really want you to realize that anything that I say, any word that I use is not going to be 100% accurate. And certainly religion, prayer, shrine, temple, all these types of things, they're mistranslations. But let's move on. Let's get to the more exciting, the more interesting stuff. I'm going to talk about things that you can receive when you are at a shrine or a temple. And at this point, we're going to switch to my overhead camera instead of looking at me directly. And we're going to talk specifically about Goshuin. Now, the reason why I am talking about Goshuin is because this is incredibly trendy in Japan right now. And it becomes so popular that people go specifically to these locations just to acquire these things that I'm going to tell you about in a minute. And it is important to realize that, of course, this is a spiritual practice. This is something that is meant to denote that you have gone to a place of spiritual importance, and it is meant to serve as your proof that you have been there. In fact, let me go back to the slides again, because like I said, I am a little bit back and forth on this. I did realize I do have some slides of all of these things, and then I'll show you the items, and then we'll go to video, and we'll be going back and forth a lot, and just bear with me a little bit. What these things are, if you are familiar with Catholicism in the late Middle Ages, early Renaissance period, when pilgrimages were a big deal, and you would go to usually a big cathedral. It wasn't usually like a small shrine. It might have been a small shrine, but usually a big cathedral. And if you were traveling back in the Middle Ages, it was a big undertaking. I used to live in Canterbury, England, and so you may be familiar with the Canterbury Tales. And so just to get from London to Canterbury as an average person, you were walking for a month on foot to go somewhere. The only time you would really travel outside of your local area was to make a big religious pilgrimage. And of course, if you had made a big religious pilgrimage that cost a lot of money, you probably would only do it once in your lifetime, and it was both physically and mentally taxing, you would usually want to have some kind of memento of that trip. And certainly for religious purposes, it would also remind you of the reason why you went on pilgrimage. Usually it's to ask for a major boon or something like that, or to give thanks for something that had happened. You would want a physical item. And the most common thing back then would be pilgrim badges. I'm not going to talk about this anymore, but if you are familiar with the concept of a pilgrim badge from the 14th, 15th, and early 16th century in Europe, that's something to just kind of bear in mind. Goshuin, so that is the term that we're going to use, Goshuin are pieces of paper or books containing pieces of paper that have messages on them from temples and shrines to say this person has worshipped here. Again, I'm going to use worship in quotation marks. That is a Western term. That's not exactly what we're saying. They have paid their respects at that shrine. And they have, it could be a prayer, it could be a wish, it could be silent meditation. What is in your heart is in your heart, and they're not trying to dictate that. But this is something that after you go to the temple or shrine and pay your respects in whatever form that you are doing it in, then you can go and get this proof that you have been there. Now, the proof also often has some kind of wish inscribed in it to say, hey, we wish you good health or good luck or a good life or something like that. It doesn't always mean that. Sometimes it's just saying things like, oh, you were here. But it's important to note that this should not be treated like a stamp rally. If you don't know what a stamp rally is, let me just back up for 1 second. It's very popular in Japan to have literally just rubber stamps that are hidden around the place, kind of like a treasure hunt. And then you have a little notebook and you just stamp it to say, hey, I found that location. That is actually based from the original concept of these Goshuin, but it is completely secular. There's like Pokemon ones and there's like all the train stations in Osaka ones, and I've done it a lot. And I have shown you, in fact, in some of my, in the Make Your Monday that I did on book making, I showed you the book where I collect stamps from stamp rallies in Japan. But this is the originator of it. And so the stamp that you are getting is called a Goshuin. The book where you collect them is called a Goshuin Cho. Now, you don't really need to remember the word for Goshuin Cho, but I would recommend one word for Goshuin. If you look at the images that are currently on the screen, on the left, you have one particular picture of what it looks like before you go get your Goshuin, and this is just a sample image that they may or may not have available for you to look at. They don't always. And sometimes they have multiple ones in case you want to choose. But, you know, they'll have a piece of paper that looks something like the image on the left. And it is important to note that if you don't have a book that's called a Goshuin Cho, that's okay. You can just ask for it to be separately on a piece of paper. What is not okay is to ask them to put it in a different kind of book. So whether it's, you know, just a personal notebook or something that you might carry around, that is not considered acceptable. When we switch to the overhead camera, I will show you my Goshuin Cho, and I will show you the exactly how the book is put together and what it looks like and why it is assembled in that way. The reason why I'm showing you the photo that is at the top left is to show you there are two sizes originally. There was a smaller size that was originally created for going to shrines and a larger size that was created for going to temples. But the important thing to note now is it no longer matters. They are historical artifacts. You can take a shrine-sized book to a temple. You can take a temple-sized book to a shrine. No one's going to get offended. Everybody mixes and matches these between the two. So remember when we were talking about whether this is a religious practice or a spiritual practice or just something to signify that you have been to these spiritual places, I think maybe it gives you a little bit of a hint where they don't mind that you mix and match these. It's not going to offend anyone that you go and you ask for your Goshuin from a shrine on the left side of the page and you have one from a temple on the right-hand side of the page. That doesn't bother anyone. Where you can acquire them is just about anywhere. That is a bit of an exaggeration, but stationery stores have them. The two on the top were ones that my husband and I made in a specialty class in Kyoto. I'll show you a few images from that in just a moment. And certainly that's something that you can make at home. If you'd like for me to do an episode of that on Make Your Monday sometime, I can do that. It's pretty simple, actually. And it's more simple than the bookbinding class that we did last, when did we do that? Sometime in the spring, I guess it was. It is much easier than that because it's a lot more of just decorating it than it is creating or doing any paper manipulation, because you kind of buy the insides and decorate the outsides. The picture that I have on the right-hand bottom of the screen happen to be books that are available at I can't remember honestly if this was a temple or a shrine, because on that particular day I went to both. But I'm just want to show you that there are a huge variety of covers. Usually the front and back cover will be different. It doesn't have to be, but that's very, very common. They do open from the left to the right, like a traditional Japanese book, and they are an accordion fold book. And all you need to do is have a book in the right format. It doesn't even have to have any writing on the outside cover. That I do have writing on these because, again, it was a class and they provided me with it. But the book itself is not religious or spiritual or auspicious in any way. It is just in a format that opens up certain possibilities. And that is what is important about a Goshuin Cho. But again, as I said, if you don't want to collect the book, that's fine. You can just ask for it on a piece of paper and they will absolutely give it to you. Now, you have to use their piece of paper, and some of that honestly, I don't know if there is any spiritual connotation to that whatsoever. I don't know that one, but I do know that there is an artistic reason for it. And that is because when you're dealing with ink, because a lot of this is brush calligraphy, when you're dealing with certain inks and certain stamps, some papers that you may have, like copy paper, will not absorb the ink properly. That's one reason why you definitely would never, ever, ever hand them your own paper to put it on, because it may not work and you may frustrate them and waste their time and things like that. Now, how do you, I'll just go back here. How do you actually acquire these? When you go to a temple or shrine, there may or may not be an obvious place where these are located. So you may just want to remember the word Goshuin and just kind of hold up your book, if you have one, and say Goshuin, like question mark, to any employee that's working there. And then they will usually point you to the right area. There is a donation that must be made, and this is where I'm going to make a very clear distinction. All of these things that are acquired or received at temples and shrines, technically you are not purchasing them. I may slip up and use the term purchase. That is incorrect, and please do not listen from me on that. Please remember that it is something that is gifted to you for a donation. And one of the reasons why this is important is because then they will not be charging sales tax either. But no, it is more because this is how these elaborate and often ancient temples continue to stay open and stay active and stay in good repair. As faithful practitioners of religion all around the world have declined in recent years, it is by providing these items, providing these items to you, all the different ones that we will be talking about today, for your donation, and then all of that money does go into helping with the maintenance and upkeep of those spiritual places. So they are perfectly happy for you to come and receive these items in exchange for your money. They are really not the police of how sincere are you in your beliefs. In fact, like I said, with Shinto, a lot of priests don't even believe that it is a religion. They don't believe that you have to do anything in particular. There are etiquettes that you should follow to not be rude. And again, I'm not going to go into the detail. There are things like washing your hands, and obviously things like using a Goshuin cho, or having things on paper. There are etiquettes that you follow. You should also go pay your respects first and then go get this proof, because it is a bit rude to be like, I want the proof that I did this, and then you didn't do it. It's the same as asking for a medal when you didn't run the race. That's the only way I can sort of explain that one. But yeah, definitely go pay your respects or meditate or whatever it is that you personally are comfortable doing in that location, according to the etiquettes of that particular location. It's a little bit different between a temple and a shrine. You can look all this up, or I can provide you with resources for it. It's in pretty much every guidebook. There's lots of YouTube available. People do a much better job of explaining the specific etiquettes of how to go to a temple or a shrine. My point is just go do those things and do them respectfully, and then you can go. And usually these books are stamped in a different location to where the actual ritual buildings are. They're off on the side. Calling it a gift shop is really a misnomer, but it looks like a gift shop to Western eyes. That's often where you would go. That may not be where they're doing it, but those people in the place where they have all the other things will certainly be able to point you in the right direction. Not every temple or shrine has these available, and some of them only have them available for certain hours of the day. You may get there after the people who are doing these are finished. Let me just show you briefly. This was some images of when my husband and I made our own. I can't find mine at the moment, so we won't. I won't show you that one just today, but I will say that it is basically just decorating the cover, and then you have this particular accordion folded text block on the inside. We're going to switch to the overhead camera now so I can show you the actual thing, and I think that's going to be a little bit better. So we can probably put the slides down to a small image on the side because we don't need these, and this is my overhead camera. I do also want to apologize a little bit because everything is upside down for me, so I am over here, and this is towards the computer. So if I do things a bit oddly, that's because I'm trying to work upside down. Now, this is my Goshuin cho from 2019. I happened to spend 3 months in Japan in 2019, and I have almost filled this book. Now, do you have to use a different book every time you go? No, absolutely not. Do you have to fill it up? before you start a new one? No, absolutely not. Those things really don't matter. It's just that I happen to have one book that I've mostly completed, and then I'm just going to stop because next time I go back, I have the new book that I made in the class there, and I'll be starting over with that. But you're probably thinking, that doesn't look like a book. That's a fox face, and I see little straps and things. That's a bag, right? Yes, yes. To be very respectful of this item, it is recommended, not required, but recommended that you keep it in some kind of a bag. Again, the bags are not religiously auspicious in any way. You can use a Ziploc bag if you would like. The point is to be respectful of the item itself, and respectful of what it symbolizes. So keep it clean, keep it tidy. This particular bag I got outside of Fushimi Inari Temple in Kyoto in a gachapon. So again, there's nothing special about the bags themselves. That's not important. And I certainly do know people who keep it in not a plastic bag like a shopping bag, but a Ziploc bag that you can seal just to keep water and dust out of it is perfectly fine. So I'm going to open it up and pull it out. When you go to a temple or shrine and you are asking for them to give you a Goshuin, you will have this completely open to the next available page. So you don't want them to take it out of the bag. That's a little bit rude. It's wasting their time, really, than anything else. It's not sort of religiously offensive. It's just a waste of their time, and you want to be respectful of their time. If there's anything that you take away from this about how to behave when you are at a religious facility in Japan, is that please be respectful. They are different. They have different rules. You can't generalize between them. You can't say at all shrines they do this, or at all temples they do that, or you can always do this, or you can never do that. Very often look for the signs or look at what other people around you are doing. Some people will say, oh, you can never, ever, ever, take pictures at a shrine. And then there are shrines that have QR codes and recommended hashtags up there. So I just really recommend that you go at it assuming that you're not allowed to do things, or they may not have what you think may be there, and just try to be as respectful as possible of the property and be as polite as possible, even if you don't understand everything that's going on. Back to the book itself, you'll see I have this little band on here. That just holds it closed. Again, it's not required. I happened to buy this at a temple, and so this is an auspicious knot, but this is not really a religious item either. It's just handy, and I'll show you why you might want a little band on here in just a second. But the band itself doesn't have any particular meaning. It's just nice. It's pretty. I got a red one because I had a red book. This book itself has two different images, the front and the back. In fact, when I purchased it, I thought this was the front. It's not. And books, what's inside of here is an accordion fold book. I'm going to show you the wrong side of the paper first, just so that you know what I mean by an accordion fold book. So this is what it's one long piece of paper that has just been folded back and forth. Let me see if I can open this gently without any... You'll see in a minute why I'm trying to be careful about this. This is just one really long piece of paper. Now, if you want to make your own, I will say that is the most difficult part. And I have found that you can just buy them the correct size and shape. And they're about $10 online. I can tell you where they are if you'd like to make them yourself. And that is, literally just finding the size of paper is the difficult part. Making an accordion fold book is not difficult, but that is not the topic of today. But I do want to mention, you saw that one side was all blank because you will only use one side of the book. Because, I'm using the word because a lot, aren't I? Because you are meant to display it fully opened up when you get home. These are all Goshuin from different places. And you may note, this is an odd one. This is from a museum. They gave it to me, and so I put it in the book. Whether it's really meant to be there, I don't know. But because it was a gift from a particular museum, it was on a very special day. That's why they were passing them out. I'm not really sure if I made some kind of error by putting it in this book with the rest of them or not, and I am absolutely not an expert. But when you get home from your trip, you would normally display these sort of on a table, all opened out, because Depending on where they're from, they may be granting you some sort of blessing, and that blessing is sometimes considered to be a little bit more effective if it is open and you can see it. It's not required, but that was how they were designed originally. Thank you, Aurora. I'm so glad you're here. We are so happy to have you with us. Aurora is one of the members of the Austin Oita Sister City Committee. So we have finally dragged her into our watching family here. Let me show you a few more things. You may notice there's all these pieces of paper that are stuck in here. And you're like, why? Why is there pieces of paper randomly stuck in here? I'll be perfectly honest. They usually give you something, even if it's a blank page, because they don't want this ink smearing from one side to the other. I will show you the different parts of a Goshuin first. I do have a brief video of someone doing it, but you can't see terribly well, so I'm not sure we'll even get to that. But let me explain what is on each one of these first, and then you'll see why they put pieces of paper in there, and then I'll explain a little bit more about what these pieces, why you may want to say these pieces of paper even after you're done. So this is a pretty standard Goshuin. They're usually going to have some kind of thick calligraphy down the middle, some kind of thinner calligraphy on your, I have to remember what side that is. That is the left-hand side. And they may or may not have something on the right-hand side. Can I read most of this? No, absolutely not. I can read a little bit of it. What I can read is that on the left-hand side, on this long section here, is the date. Now, the date here is the year. This year is not the Western year. This year, in this particular case, is the Reiwa era. It's going to be what they call the regnal year. That means the year of the emperor. So because I was there right when they were changing emperors, it became the first year of a new era, the Reiwa era. In this case, this is not, so this is Reiwa. So that's the emperor era name. Sometimes an emperor can change it during their reign. They haven't done that in a couple of centuries, so that's not common anymore. But it'll say Reiwa, and here, this character is actually the character for origin. In this case, it means the first year. If it is another year, so let me go further back in this. This was before the Reiwa era, and these are the characters for, it was the 30-something, 32nd year of that, of the Heisei, don't ask me, I think it was the Heisei era. I know this, I just can't remember. But the point is that this will have the year in terms of the emperor, and then we'll have, you may be able to see that this is, brush calligraphy can be a little bit more tricky to read, even if you do understand kanji, but this is basically April, and this is 16th. So I happen to know that this was the Reiwa era, sorry, the Heisei era, the 32nd year. Oh, I can't remember. This is not the standard, again, not the standard kanji for the way we would write the years if we were just writing a regular year. But it's basically, this is the particular year, and then this is the date that I was there. Now, in some cases, like when I purchased the book originally, it had it pre-stamped in here, and all they did was write the specific dates. Everything else had been pre-written, and then they just filled in literally the 2 characters for the month and the day of the month on there. And that's not uncommon when you're buying it for buying a new one for the first time. But back to an example here. So you've got the date. You will have at least one stamp. It may be in a different color. Here's some from Hiejinja that has a different color. Some of these are incredibly elaborate. Multiple colors, multiple designs. That's why it's become very popular. There are Instagrams that are just devoted to these different collections of these. And again, to say that you're collecting them seems a bit flippant, but it is, again, I don't really have a better word in English to describe it, but certainly people who go to a lot of temples and shrines with the sole intention of acquiring these stamps. So this may be simple, it may be incredibly elaborate. When they are simple like this is just the symbol of the particular temple or shrine, and then it is also written, again, in kanji. I cannot read that whatsoever. And then this may be another reflection of the location. So like here, this is one that was actually the symbol of the, I'm thinking it's a temple, I can't remember. And then this is more like their name stamp. So it is a little bit different. You can also still see the date, although in this case they have the month, day, and then the year written like this, as opposed to in one long line. Now, the important thing here is that because they're writing this with a wet ink brush, they don't want it to smear onto something else you may have had on the other page. I have never had them smear, but I appreciate that they give you this as a blotting paper. Here's one that's just completely blank. And I generally will photograph this the day that it's been taken so that I can look back in my photo memories to figure out what temple or shrine it was. But if they give you a piece of paper that has writing on it, this is going to be information, usually in Japanese, unfortunately, about that particular location. So I will have this one facing that because that is the information about this particular location. Now, I will say if you are used to using Google Translate photo applications, they don't do very well with vertical writing. It often will error on you. So this is going to have to wait until I'm much better at Japanese to be able to read it, because I can't even use a translation app, but I'm still saving it. In this particular case, I remember which shrine this was. It has their website on the bottom, a QR code. Some of these are quite advanced. Some temples have, you know, a lot of signs of saying, here's the hashtag that we recommend if you are putting this particular Goshuin up on your social media. So, you know, you will have a wide variety of little pieces of paper that you don't have to keep, but I personally do because my memory is not great. Here's one from, this was a shrine that is dedicated to a former general. Sorry, it's not a shrine, it's a temple. A former general who was also kind of known as the godfather of ninjas. And so they gave me a postcard. They actually did a lot of other cool things to it, but they gave us a postcard instead of just a blank piece of paper. And I keep that as well, because again, it does have the website address on the back and the name and things like that. So that is why I personally use the little belly band. Sorry, we call it a belly band in bookmaking. It's just an elastic band. But again, so you'll recall that it opens, it's hard for me to do this upside down. It does, this is technically the front of the book, but we are opening it what feels like it's backwards to us. It is definitely this way. It is not opened that way. So it is left to right. And then if you are going to the Goshuin location to ask for it, you would go ahead and open it to the first available blank page. It's not like your passport. They're not going to skip around. I don't know about you, but sometimes my passport has just got stuff in all the most random places in there and out of sequential order. No, these are, they're always going to put them in sequence for you. It is recommended, but not required. If you have one that has been given to you as a separate piece of paper, which I have an example here, it would be recommended that you paste it in the correct location chronologically. However, if you don't, it's not a problem because I forgot to leave a space for this one, so I didn't put it in there. If you do have these separate pieces of paper, this is a nice rice paper. I did bring, I recommend some kind of dry glue, like a glue stick or a paste. And then you use that, because otherwise, if you're using a wet glue, it can buckle up on you and look a little bit unsightly. Make sure it is an acid-free glue. You don't want everything discoloring and turning yellow on you, because certainly all the paper that are used in there will be acid-free. This is meant to be a keepsake that you are keeping possibly for generations in your family. But yeah, if they give it to you on a piece of paper, sometimes they only have these pre-written ones. This one wasn't even the specific date that I was at this particular temple. But that is all that they want to do. They don't have time. They're particularly busy with tourists, things like that. This particular one did give me a little beautiful little half-size, an A5 size folder to put everything in. And there are some other things in here that I will show you later. There's also a fortune and an Ofuda in the same little envelope, which I had completely lost until I found it yesterday. That's why they're still in the little envelope. Anyway, that is your Goshuin and Goshuin Cho, I will say that the one thing that I find a little bit disappointing is that even if a temple or shrine has become mostly wheelchair accessible, it could be that the location where you're getting the Goshuin is not. So I'm looking at you specifically, Sensoji Temple in Asakasa. You have done a wonderful job of putting in elevators and ramps and things like that to make it very, very wheelchair accessible, except this building where it is not. Sometimes you have to wait in a very long line. And then again, you will usually you may pay the fee when you hand them the book, or you may give the fee when they return the book to you. When you are waiting for them to do it, you want to make sure that you don't disturb them. You don't want to hover. You don't want to be up in their face about anything. Let me see if I can get the video up. I believe my director in the background has the first video, which was, and again, so just to give you a little bit of background on this video while we're trying to get it up, it's very short. Normally speaking, they may take this away and do this in another room where you're not a participant in this. I mean, it's not meant to be a participatory thing. And generally speaking, it is rude to bother them, to interrupt, to try to talk to them while they're doing it. You don't want to do that. But there is one particular temple, I believe it was, can't remember if it was a temple or a shrine. I think it was a temple. That because it's in a very, very popular tourist area, they actually have an observation window, and that's meant for you to be able to go there and watch them. So hopefully we can pull that video up.
The camera's still on, you might want to turn it off.
So, oops, there we go. That is my discussion about Goshuin, which is the longest conversation that we'll be having today, because that is kind of the most involved process to both acquiring them and then keeping them at home and what you put them in. We have other topics that we'll be getting into that is a quicker process and we won't require so much time. But I would just like to stop for a moment and ask if anybody has any questions, any comments. There are now available, you can order these online. Now, it is completely in Japanese, and sometimes it can be difficult to get them to ship because sometimes the Japan Post isn't running and things like that. But there are some locations, and I can send you some reference material. I have not done it yet, but there are some locations where you can order these and have them delivered to you because they understand that people just can't travel. And again, technically, this is meant to be proof of you having paid respects at a particular shrine, but because they are still needing the money to keep these shrines and temples running, they are bending the rules because of the pandemic. I don't think they'll continue this after coronavirus is completely finished, but certainly at the moment, it's something you can participate in and to a limited extent, even without traveling. So give you just another second. I'm going to put this all away respectfully. And then we will switch back to the slides. In fact, I'll go ahead and pull this. Hopefully we can pull the slides back up so you don't have to be watching me. Okay, so we do have a question from Aurora. Are some locations more popular than others with long waits to receive a Goshuin? Absolutely. Generally speaking, the more popular a temple or shrine, the longer the wait is going to be for a Goshuin, just straight across the board. Now, if they're really, really, really popular, like Fushimi Inari in Kyoto, they may have 20 different people who are doing this. So the wait may not be very long. Other places are so small that they don't do it. There's just no Goshuin window. There's nobody there, or they're only there like 2 hours a day, that type of thing. And I have to reshare the slides because we have, sorry, that is, like I said, we have so much media to get through today that it can be a little tricky. So let me pull this back up. There we go. Hopefully the slides are coming back up. So yeah, some of these I have waited as long as 45 minutes for one. And again, from an accessibility standpoint, that was difficult because you're waiting, literally standing on stairs, and you're standing up. There's no seating arrangements. There's nothing like that, and it can be very difficult. And I think that's something that probably needs to be addressed as they are trying to make places more accessible. But for now, you may just have to ask someone else to go get it for you. That's not considered a taboo. That's just considered an accessibility option. You know, if normally if it were me and I were there with my husband, I might send him to go get it for me. He has now watched the process enough times that I feel like he probably could, but it can be a little confusing because sometimes there are different options of what to pick, you know, different stamp images or whatever. And it's generally best if you are able to go ahead and request it yourself. And then some, like I said, some of them that have the really fancy ones and they're intentionally trying to get repeat business. Again, the word business is a misnomer, but I think we understand. They're wanting you to come back. They want you to come back every month and get a new stamp to continue to be a patron of their facility. And in that particular case, you know, you kind of need to know which ones you already have, which ones you don't have. But I have found that the point and nod option works pretty well. You do not need to worry about whether you can speak Japanese or not, as long as you kind of remember the word for Goshuin. That can get most of it done. They will have the Roman numerals for what the fee is. So as long as you can read, you know, it's usually about 300 yen. As long as you can read that part, you can create a transaction without knowing any Japanese whatsoever. So I don't want you to worry about that in particular either. It's nice if you can speak some Japanese, but it is not a stumbling block whatsoever. And the bigger the temple, the more likely they are to have information in English for you. And then the ones that have information in English, maybe the ones that have longer lines. So usually if it's particularly big, if it's something you found on the internet, advertised, or, you know, read an article about that particular temple or shrine, that's probably going to be popular enough. There may be a bit of a wait. And sometimes they'll hand you like a little number, and then they'll call your number, and it feels a little bit like waiting at McDonald's, but, you know, they'll give you a little token. And then when they have finished yours, they will, you know, you'll exchange the token for your book back. So if there are no other questions about Goshuin, I'm going to move on to Omamori, which I think is probably what most people are going to be more familiar with because this comes up in anime all the time. Let me show you what Omamori could look like. You may be thinking that those don't look very familiar. How about something like this? Little pouches, usually made of brocade, that have some kind of cool image on them. You may notice there's a Hello Kitty one. You may notice there's a ninja one that belongs to my husband. That is from the Hattori Hanzo shrine. You may notice that the ones at the top all have little animals peeking over the top. Those are specific to the zodiac. Ashley, it's cool that your roommate has some of those. I know I have so many. I couldn't find them all, so I can't even show you all of the ones that I have. But they usually have some kind of kanji on there that is what they are wishing for you. So let me back up a step and explain what Omamori are. Again, to try to give a rough, not direct comparison, it is like an amulet. You may think of, say in Catholicism in particular, you may have like a saint's medallion that you carry around because it is, you know, a patron saint of travelers, maybe protecting you while you're on your journey. So these are amulets. That is the rough translation of the word. Again, that's not correct because it can take many shapes and forms. But I will use the word amulet in English, and hopefully you'll understand what I'm talking about. But these are like an item that you would carry with you to give you some particular type of luck or blessing or good wishes. Unfortunately, they are in Japanese. They are beautiful, beautiful brocade, but you may not understand what on earth these things are. I'm going to go back and say some of them are not in this particular shape. They're not made of, I'll go back and just, tongue-tied. Give me a second. So inside of these pouches, there are little pieces of paper that have some kind of prayer or blessing inside of them. You generally do not want to open them. I have never opened them. I don't know what it says. But that is the description on the outside will be what that blessing is on the inside. Some of them are not that shape at all. So I will show you some of these in particular. The one on the left, it is a monk's staff. If you watch a lot of anime or play video games, particularly about Exorcist, also known as Onmyoji, you may see this little thing and they're always like, you know, banging the staff on the floor and it jingles and it drives out the demons or whatever. I don't know how that became associated with road safety, but in this particular temple, that is the symbol for road safety. And I would show you this. I would show you a lot of other things beyond what you will see today, but I didn't want to dismantle any of these items from where they have been put in my house or in my cars, because I don't want to mess with the look. Pictures you can hear, Ashley says. Absolutely. Like I can tell what sound that would make. This is plastic. It doesn't make that sound. You may be able to see from the photo on the back of it is a suction cup, and it is actually suctioned on the inside of my car. Fortunately, fingers crossed, I do want you to think about these things in the same context as we might have fingers crossed, lucky rabbit's feet, four-leaf clovers. That's how they're treated. These are treated as luck items, blessing items, good wish items. They are not necessarily sacred items. So it's, while I did say it's kind of like people would use a saint's medal, it's not as sacrosanct as a saint's medal might be treated. Now, some people may treat it that way. And again, I want you to be very clear. We cannot generalize. Some people will have different opinions of these. But these items are meant to be worn or displayed or used, not put on a shelf and prayed to or revered. We'll get to some of those items later in the broadcast. But these are useful things, and it is considered that they only really take effect if you are using them. So I have some that have been sitting in a box, and according to tradition, they're not doing anything for me because they're sitting in a box. But I will show you a couple of these when I switch back the camera in a bit. But for now, I'm just going to show you a couple of what they look like when they're in, again, shop is the wrong word for it, but I don't have a better word for it, what they look like in a shop. And so I tend to only buy the ones that have an English translation for them. So I kind of know what they're for. I do have some for my pet. I did buy the charm for elegance. That's not even a prayer. It's just pretty. And I think I have actually seen that exact same thing. It's a little, I'll show you that one directly in a minute. I think that's just something they bought somewhere else. I don't think it has any religious connotation, and we'll get to that again later on. Sometimes they just have things that are for sale to tourists. So you may notice there's some chopsticks up there. Those aren't religious chopsticks. They're just chopsticks that you can buy. So sometimes it is correct to call it a gift shop. Sometimes it's not. And so the items in there may or may not have any religious symbolism. You just kind of have to look at them, read the descriptions, and tell. But yeah, I only buy the ones that have an English translation to them. There are some lists online that you can get that are some of the more common kanji for what may be written on them. I personally am not comfortable with that. Again, it's not like you're going to be harmed by buying something you don't need. I certainly purchased one that is a relationship charm that I'll show you in a minute. At that point, my husband and I have been married for 20 years. It's now been 22 years. We're doing fine. I didn't need a relationship charm, but it has a goldfish on it, and we have goldfish. So I just wanted it. And I don't think that's going to bother anybody. It's not going to hurt. So even if you don't understand what it is, if you really like it, just remember, this is a gift in exchange for a donation. They don't really mind if you're giving them a donation for something that you're not going to take any benefit or value from. That's okay for them. You can collect these as souvenirs, and they understand, especially when they have all the English written on them. They understand that you are collecting this as a souvenir. It's not going to offend anyone that I know of. Again, there may be some people out there, but generally speaking, this temple is okay with you taking it. What you do with them, I'll show you in a minute. But again, this is what it may look like in a shop. You may have a whole bunch of them to choose from. Prices range between about 300 yen, which is about $3. And I think the most expensive one I've personally purchased is 1,000 yen, or about $10. Now that one comes in a cool little box, and I'll show you in a minute. Sometimes you have a wide selection of ones to choose from. The ninja ones, as you can see from the top, the only description they give you in English is just ninja. So we have no idea what kind of blessing that gives you. My husband wanted to say it turned him into a ninja, but I can tell you he is not that stealthy. And he will probably comment that later himself in the chat. Timmy Soros, in case you don't know, is my husband. So when he makes sarcastic remarks in the chat, that's okay. I will get my revenge later. On the bottom of the screen, you may notice that there are a bunch of different items there. And so you may see Omamori, which are these amulets. You may see stickers. You may see a Goshuin Cho. You may see some other things that we'll get to in a minute. You may notice in that particular picture, now we're looking at the picture on the right-hand side of the bottom. If you look at the top row and the third thing over on the top row, it looks suspiciously like the necklace I am wearing. In fact, it is the necklace I'm wearing. You may have seen me wear this necklace in a lot of programs here. Maybe next time we put the camera on my face big, you will have to take a look at it. A lot of people may have thought that this was a Wicca symbol. It is not. It is from the Seimei Shrine, and this is a ward against evil. I purchased it to get me through a certain election. That's all I'm going to say. Don't want to be too controversial. And I found it was pretty successful. I got the result I was looking for. So I still wear it quite often because, again, I am not a religious person, but I am a little bit superstitious. And I honestly think that blessings and things are not a bad thing. I might as well try it. It's not going to hurt. And I think a lot of people, particularly in Japan, have the same opinion of it. So, yeah, so Lesser Cunning Constellations. Remember the cosplay from X 1999, because I'm Bill Nerd. In fact, that we'll talk about this particular shrine in just a second, because I have some more things to show you from it. That is the Seimei Jinja. If you have played games or watched anime about chasing down demons, or you played the video game Onmyoji, which is about Seimei, this star symbol is his logo, as it were. So let's go ahead and switch the camera over, and I can start showing you some of the things, because I have a lot of different Omamori that we can be looking at. And, you know, I think you'll see how some of them are a little bit lighthearted and a little bit flippant, and that is okay. But here's another thing that I purchased in the same shrine. I'm sorry, I have to jump back and forth a little bit between my different windows. This is a bunch of things in Japanese. I don't know what they are whatsoever. It's just a little book. And I have absolutely no concept of what it is. Someday I will be able to read it. It is a fortune, I can tell you that. So technically this should be in the next section, which is about fortunes. But I think they were all the same. So I don't know if this is a guide to reading fortunes. I have no idea. But this was something that you can purchase from the Seimei Temple. This is also the Seimei Temple. And I'll be getting to more of these in just a minute. Seimei Jinja. Actually, no, this was Seimei Shrine. Let me back up 1 second to explain the difference between how you know, before you even go there, if something is a temple or a shrine. If the name ends in Jinja, that is a shrine. If it ends in Ji, that is a temple. I'm sure there is a more accurate translation for it. I don't happen to know it, but certainly all jinjas are shrines, and therefore Shinto, all jis are temples. You can have a shrine or temple that isn't named something jinja or something ji, in which case there are other clues, but I'm not going to get into that right now. That's a little bit more complicated. Let's look at some of the things that I have acquired and to tell you what you do with them, because unless you're like me, you don't usually leave them in the package and just have them sitting around. You're supposed to actually use them. Now, the obvious one, this is one for my pet, and I should have put it on her collar with a little jingle, and that's why it has a bell, and this is for her good luck and good health. Until quite recently, my cat did not wear a collar, so I hadn't put it on her, and then because of the pandemic, I hadn't been cleaning house, and I had lost track of where this was, so this will probably be going on her collar later. The more bells we can put on her, the more it amuses us, and she hates it. But, you know, I think that it may be quite cute. It may also dangle too long for her. So, you know, that's your own mileage may vary. Some of these you may notice. So this is, I can go ahead and open this so that you can see it. This is the one that I saw this exact same package in like a Daiso or a Don Quixote or something. I definitely saw it at the Wisteria Flower Garden. So I think they just purchased this from somewhere and are selling it as a charm for quote unquote elegance. I don't know that it has any kind of religious actual meaning or connotation. But the reason why I'm showing you this, it is beautiful beadwork, which is one of the main reasons I got it. But it is a cell phone charm. Now, how many of us still have cell phones with a charm spot on there? Not many. I remember in the sort of early 2000s, you would have this little specific spot on your phone where you could add charms, and young girls in particular, I was too old for that, but young girls would have sort of like 10 or 20 things on there. It would be a big stack as big as their phone. But that is, what these are ultimately were designed for. But nowadays, most people will put them on the strap of your bag or purse. So they're meant to be worn on the outside. My table is a bit too small to bring you my purse, so I will just show you, pretend this is a purse strap for a moment. And you're just going to put it on here. I don't know how well you can see, as a lark's head knot. So you're going to open up this strap bit in a circle, and then you would stick your fingers through, if you can, your fingers aren't too huge, around the strap that you're putting on to pull it through. Now, some of these can be tricky. We're not going to sit here. This is not Make Your Monday, so we're not going to sit here all day and watch me put charms on a bag that they ultimately don't need to be on. But that is how you would display them. You'll see them on purses and backpacks. That's not to say those are the only places they can go. Certainly the ones that are for road safety will go in your car, like on a rearview mirror, if that's not blocking your vision. Obviously, safety is the most important, so you may put it sort of on the back of a car seat or something like that. Some of them will have clips. This one, I believe, I got at Mount Fuji. Some of these have specific meanings. So like this is a longevity bell. This one I actually will be referring to later because I didn't get this from a temple, but it has an original religious meaning. We'll be getting that section in a bit. I hate this because it's really noisy. It drives me nuts. Timmy had it on his backpack for quite some time, and it just drove me up a tree. But that is how you use them. I will also note that they're supposed to be good. I'm defining the word good as effective, useful, serving their purpose, doing whatever, giving you whatever wishes or blessings that you have requested for approximately a year. That's how long they last. I have no idea if, say, it's been sitting in a bag like this one has, and then you get it out, if it only starts when you start using it. Oh, no. I really don't know. I've never gotten a straight answer out of anybody that is a Westerner. So that's something you would really have to ask someone who is a more devout practitioner of that spiritual practice. But to show you some of the examples that I think are kind of cool, you saw the ninja one that my husband has. This one is a Hello Kitty one. Again, this is what I said was the relationship charm, but I got it because it has a cute little koi on there. And we happen to have goldfish, very, very large goldfish in the koi family. And so we just got this because it was cute. You will often see Hello Kitty versions of it. Very, very popular. I've seen Mickey Mouse ones. You can sometimes buy these on Amazon. That's not necessarily, I'll get to it in just a second. About things that are from places other than temples and shrines. But just for now, I'm going to show you things that were legitimately from temples and shrines. So this is one from Harajuku. And this was they always put them in a little bag. And this bag will have the name of, it has this symbol at the top, which basically is a symbol for up, and I think it's just saying this side up. But I believe that the name at the bottom usually is the temple or shrine that you've gotten it from. This particular charm, I do not know what it symbolizes, but it is, let me see if I can bring it up where you can see it. It is a collaborative project with the shop Beans in Harajuku. So this is meant to look like a sweets bag, and I got it because of Akashikon. It just reminded me of Akashikon. So it's Japanese fashion and sweets together, and I just thought it was really adorable. This was on my most recent trip to Japan, and I hadn't taken the other things off of my bags yet, so I hadn't used it, and now I've forgotten it, and it may not be effective anymore, and I don't know what it was even supposed to be doing for me. Yeah, it may just be a beautiful souvenir. Now, what you do with them, if it came from a temple or shrine, is that after the year is up, you are supposed to return it. And it is important if you can. Obviously, if you can't remember, I wouldn't stress over it hugely. But if you return to Japan a year later, it is considered respectful to return them, and then they will be burned in a ritual ceremony as thanks and gratitude for the blessings that it has given you or the original person. Now, you can keep them. It's not considered horrible. It's just not considered as respectful to return them. Goshuin, you do not return. That is yours to keep forever, and you are meant to keep that as a reminder of your experience at that location. But these have a limited effectiveness, and they're supposed to be returned and very respectfully and ceremonially retired to be kind of restore the circle of the blessings. It is helpful if you can to only return things from shrines to a shrine. You don't have to return it to the shrine that you got it from. But if it's from a shrine, it's helpful to take it to a shrine. If it's from a temple, it's helpful to take it to a temple. A lot of these are mass manufactured. And the point that I'm getting into now, so Misty is asking, how can you be sure of the difference? You mean whether it was from a temple or a shrine? Is that what you're asking? I tend to photograph it and write down where I got it. I don't think, this is the point that I'm getting to. These tend to be mass produced, these exterior bags. And in fact, there's a really cool, there was a show on NHK World. I can't remember which show it was, but it was basically about people who designed these bags and the brocade and like the actual weaving of the bags. So these can be mass produced and they can be sold at both temples and shrines. So if you can't remember, I don't think that's a huge problem. You will note that you can sometimes find them on the internet for like $3 on Amazon. And I would say if you purchase that, you're purchasing it strictly as a decoration. It should not be treated as if it is a true omamori, as if it is a true amulet, or that there's any kind of blessing on it. Even if the Amazon description says, oh, this is the one for health, or this is the one for luck, treat it as a knockoff. They also, sometimes you'll just get printed ones or stickers or things like that. Just, make a mental distinction between the two. I can't find it, but actually, Melissa had given me one that is a Demon Slayer one that I got for my birthday, and I just treat that as anime merchandise and not as a true omamori. But in this particular case, I have seen this exact one at both a temple and a shrine. So that is not really as important. We'll look at some other items that are very clearly from one or the other as we get through the rest of the broadcast. We'll be going much quicker through the rest of the stuff. But, that's not as big of a deal. And again, you can keep them. I would keep them better than I do. I'd keep them more respectfully, put them in a box or something where they're not my cat knocking on the floor, unfortunately. That's not really a great thing. But, I do have health challenges and some things just happen. But that is the general cycle of life of what you are supposed to do with omamori. Obviously, they understand you may not be coming back to Japan. And that's not, I don't want you to not get them because you can't take them back. That's not really what this is about. It's not meant to be a guilt trip or anything like that. This is just in the obvious ideal situations what they're designed for. That was what is originally meant to be. So bear that in mind. And if you do go back, it's another thing that you can engage in. I have never personally taken them back, so I don't know how the process works. I do have something I can show you later for a different object that I have seen returned. So let me move on in the slides a little bit. I had a video with some of these, but we don't really have time, and I don't think you really need to see what the shops look like in particular. So I'm going to move on to, one final note. You may have seen an anime where people are making these little pouches for friends for good luck. That's fine. You certainly can do that. If you would like a Make Your Monday on that, we can do it. That is treated strictly as a luck symbol and a friendship. The same thing as people making you a t-shirt or, any kind of cheering you on for an exam or a ball game or something like that. So you may see the exact same shape, and it may also use the word omamori. I don't remember how they always say it in anime, but if you've seen that and you're like, how does that tie in? That is just a friendship symbol using the same imagery, is how I would treat it. Let's move on. These next two sections, the next couple sections should be a lot quicker, although I do have a lot more video of this one, but they're short, very short. So omikuji. What is an omikuji? Omikuji, these lists are just for me to remind me to show you these videos. Omikujis are fortunes. you've probably seen an anime where they're getting fortune slips and it's either good fortune or bad fortune or something like that. So I'm going to show you two videos. One is, this is me quite a few years and pounds ago. The first video is me doing the shaking to draw one of the little sticks. That is not always how they are selected, but that is kind of the cool anime one that we've all seen. And then the second video of that series will be what you do if you have a bad fortune. So these are pretty short. Hopefully we can get those up and we can see what they look like, just so you kind of know what the experience is like. Sorry, that was the video from the shop. We can skip to the next video. That's fine. So at this point, you are going to be matching the symbols on the stick, which are kanji numbers. But it doesn't matter if you can't understand what the numbers mean. You're just going to match the pattern to the little drawer. There is no symbolism to the number itself. It's literally just matching it up with the drawer. It's not like, oh, I got a 93. That's great.
Is it a good one or a bad one? Is it a good one or a bad one?
I got good fortune. Number 91.
Okay, so you need to take care of that respectively.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is what happens. You go into the little drawer. I will say, in some of the big temples and shrines, they will have some English on them. In some of the smaller temples and shrines, there was no English whatsoever. There was kanji. And I could not find, but I can dig up if you wanted me to email it to you later. There is a little guide to how to read, and all I can tell you is how to read, whether it's good fortune or bad fortune or something like that. If you have good fortune, you are supposed to keep it respectfully. Some people store it in their wallet. Other people put it at home. I have a bunch of them that I can show you if you would like here on the desk. But I kept all the good ones. And then if it's bad fortune, and you can see they're all in, some of them are very, very, very much in Japanese, and other ones will be completely in English, and they'll have like relationship fortune and business fortune and like academic fortune and things like that. But if it is a bad fortune, the point, the process that you go through is you're going to tie it to a designated location. You will be able to spot it because other people will have done it. Tie it to a designated location so that you leave the bad fortune in that place. So we have another video that we can show you of just me having a really bad fortune and then not being happy about it, but leaving that bad fortune in that location where it can be, you know, washed away from me. Hopefully we can have. You're just tying it in an overhand knot. That's all there was to it. That was a very short video. It wasn't terribly exciting. I did show you, let me move on the slides for a second. I did show you what it's like when you do the shaker. Sometimes you are just drawing out of a hole. This is actually more common for the ones that are in English. So you put your money in the little slot on the right-hand side there, and you just dig around in there and pull out a fortune. You can see the sample, the fortune that we saw in the video. You can see that is a small bit that has the English on it. The rest of it is actually in several other languages. That was Sensoji temples, so they get tourists from around the world. And, you know, they don't have a lot of room to put the entire translation of it on there. So that's something that, again, you may in the future want to go back and read. I don't know that there is any particular benefit to keeping them other than it's just respectful, and hopefully that'll make the good fortune happen. But it's meant to be your fortune on that day, not sort of your fortune for a long period of time, unless you're doing a New Year's Day, and then that may be your fortune for the year. But generally speaking, it's just a snapshot of what your luck is right now. Let me see what other, so that's all of the images that I have for that. I will show you if we can switch to the other camera briefly. Sometimes it is, when you're drawing them, they're in little tubes. And so you can draw it and then the fortune is inside of the tube. Again, if it's good or even mediocre, I will go ahead and save it. Sometimes they're really, really tiny little tubes. And that one, I could never get the fortune back in there. I think this one was actually one of Timmy's. I can't remember. Sometimes they're really cute. So this one I did look at the fortune and then put it back in there. But yeah, it's this beautiful little origami doll in there. So I just, you know, if this is something that would interest you, I can photograph these, put them on my Instagram or something in the future. That's I don't think that's super important, but you can also just buy these little tubes by themselves in craft stores and then use them for other things. So maybe you want to give, instead of like fortune cookies, which you may remember are not actually Chinese, they're American invention, but you know, instead of having fortune cookies for a party, you could make your own little fortunes and distribute them to your friends if you buy these little tubes pre-made. So I think I'm going to wrap up the discussion of fortunes. That obviously would be a much longer topic. I don't really want to spend too much time on it because ultimately it is just something that you would do on a particular day, and it's not something you're going to carry around or keep with you. The next thing we're going to move on to on the slides are, this is where we're starting to get really religious, really spiritual, and these are two concepts called Ofuda and Emma. Ofuda is a piece of paper that has some kind of spiritual connotation to it, and this can be different. Let's go ahead and put the camera back on me for a moment, because this is something that I really can only explain in words. I do have an example to show you, but most of mine are up in the actual shrine itself, and I'll show you a picture of that in just a minute. But an Ofuda is a piece of paper. I have one here to show you. It may be particularly pretty. In fact, I do have some slides we can look at in just a moment. It may be packaged up very nicely. It may just be a piece of paper that has calligraphy on it. You may recognize from the star in here, this is from the Seimei Shrine. So this is, what this one is a ward against evil. And, you know, I'm in Texas. I might need that sometime. Okay, I know I probably shouldn't say that, but you know, there's some strange people in the neighborhood. So this one is meant to be posted on a door frame or near a wall whenever you have ones that are standalone. In fact, I had lost this one, unfortunately. I know, bad person. I had thought when I first got it that I'd left it in the little beautiful little envelope that they gave me at the shrine, and I hadn't. Somehow this had gotten mixed in with my postcards, so I didn't find it until recently. This actually, if you can see, has sticky back tape on it because this is meant to be mounted above a door. Whenever you have an Ofuda, it is meant to be mounted at eye level or higher, and it may be in an auspicious place. If it is a ward and it's meant to protect things from coming into your house, that may be a particular location for it. That is actually a little bit more common in Buddhism, that these have some kind of protective quality to them. You may get larger ones. In fact, if we look at the slides now, you may get larger ones at a shrine that is meant to be a representative of the kami from that shrine. Now, kami we translate into English as God. That is really not, that is a really problematic translation, and I don't want you to be too upset about that. It's really a spirit, or sometimes there can be very metaphorical, is what I'm trying to say. So this may not be an entity, it may be a concept. And so this may be a blessing to you that you then put in your home shrine, and then you can pay respects to it, or you can make wishes on it, however you would behave at a regular full-size shrine. It's just a portable version of it that you can take home with you. These, it is very important that when you return them, if it's from a temple, return it to a temple. If it's from a shrine, you return it to a shrine. They may be made of wood, they may be made of paper, they may have other symbolic elements on them. As you can see, sometimes they have a wheat sheaf, sometimes they have like little zigzags on them. They all have different symbols to it, and we really don't have time to go into all of that. But generally speaking, I would not recommend that you purchase an Ofuda unless you know what it means and you are prepared to give it the respect that it is, that it should be accorded. So I really only put this in the section of this video so that you know what they are when you see them, and then you can make a decision as to whether you want to proceed with that or not. They do all have different meanings. They are almost never in English because this is not a thing that's really for tourists. This is really for the more devout people, or for people who at least have a sincere wish or belief and desire for the thing that they are blessing you with, or some kind of connection to that location. So a lot of people will have what they call a home shrine. It used to be like literally your home, but sometimes you have some kind of connection to a particular location. In my case, my language school was on the grounds of a shrine, like literally inside the shrine location. And so I have an Ofuda from that shrine because I consider that my spiritual home in Japan. And that is why I have it. I have it up on an altar in my house. Usually this altar should be facing, again, it should be on a wall up high. It should be facing the east. And if it can't be the east, it should be facing north or northeast. My house, I only have a wall on the facing the west. Like I have windows everywhere else. So there's just no other appropriate place to put it. So that is incorrect. But I felt like I didn't really have any other alternative because there was no other place to put it. But there is an entire practice to how this should be displayed. And I'll show you mine as this final slide of this presentation. But I really just want you to know what an Ofuda is and to know that this is probably not something that you should take lightly. Now, the other topic of this is called the Emma. So in that slide, you can see on the left, there are little plaques, and these are prayer plaques, basically. I do have an example here. Normally, you do not bring them home. It is kind of considered to be a waste. I don't think it's offensive. And I certainly have seen in the little store area of a temple where they say, because this is a Buddhist sign, it's a little mandolin, and my husband is a musician, so he liked this one. They will say you can take it home. Again, they're not going to police whether you take it home or not. That's not going to offend them. It's just considered weird because essentially you are paying for a more permanent wish or prayer to be posted. And then if you just buy it and you don't write anything on it and you take it home, you're not getting that benefit. So it's just considered odd. I don't think it's considered rude. Or certainly not from the monk that I asked about it. He was like, no, it's fine. I mean, you're just giving us money for nothing. So what you would normally do with these, I will show you some additional slides, and you move over, and I'll also continue to hold this one up. So you will see huge racks of these. They are both at temples and shrines. And so again, I think hopefully you picked up through this broadcast that you're getting the same stuff. The Omamori, the Ofuda, the Emma, they're at temples and they're at shrines. Mostly these will be at shrines rather than temples. But the one I'm holding has Buddha on it. It's from a temple. So, that's why I say to consider these religious objects is a bit odd because they're two completely separate spiritual practices with the same items and the same iconography. So that is really common in Japan, that there's a blend of spiritual practices. And in fact, they usually say that you are married as a you're born in Shinto, you get married in a Christian ceremony just because it's popular, and then you die as a Buddhist, and most funerals are Buddhist. And so you're expected to blend all these practices throughout your life. And that's why I think I don't want you to get really hung up on, well, but I believe this other one, they're not as worried about that as we are. Obviously, you have to stay true to your own beliefs. And if something bothers you and you're uncomfortable with it, don't do it. But if you're more open to the ideas, then feel free to go ahead and partake, even if you don't fully understand. They're okay with that. But to go back to the specific topic of an Emma, it is usually a wood plaque of some sort. It will have some kind of design on the front and a space on the back. On the back, you can write whatever your prayer or wish may be, and then you put it up with the other ones there. So in the particular images that I have here, the one on the left is from Seimei, the one on the right is from another shrine, one of the Lucky Cat shrines. You can write in English, don't worry about it. You can write in whatever language you want. You can write in Klingon, it doesn't matter, because it's really supposed to be just your own thoughts. And then you place it up there, and then when they become really full, as you can see at the top, I would say the one on the top left is pretty full. Then they do take them down respectfully, and they have a retirement ceremony for them where they burn them in a ritual, and otherwise they would just stack up. But other less popular shrines, some people will write the date on them. You don't have to. And I've kind of noticed that sometimes if you're looking at the date, that date may have been from like a year ago, and they don't necessarily, they mainly have a once a year ritual to retire the plaques. They may be up for quite some time. So the point is that if you're familiar with Buddhist prayer flags, it has kind of a similar connotation, that as the wind hits it and as the atmosphere hits it, that it's constantly releasing your wishes out into the world so that hopefully they have more of a chance to come true. And that is why you would partake in writing your wishes or your prayer onto an emma. Now, it can be a wish, it can be a prayer, that is up to you. It can just be, I hope you have a nice day. I've literally seen ones that are just, I hope whoever's reading this has a nice day. It doesn't have to be something very, very deep. I mean, it's to some degree, I suppose they all be deep, but it can be something just very nice and pleasant, or it can be something really meaningful. Somebody in your family is really having a difficult time and you really need something. It can be as significant or insignificant as you would like. Just whatever it is that your wish is that you would like to put out into the world. So that is the discussion of Ofuda and Emma. Let me see what else I have up in my slides. Meanwhile, if you have questions, so this is just more examples of what they look like. You can see there's that's a little Sanrio bow on there. If you have questions about Omikuji, Ofuda, or Emma, yeah, feel free to drop them in the chat now. And if not, I'm going to move on to our very last topic, which will be the quickest of all of them, which are just other auspicious items that you may get at a temple or shrine, or you may get anywhere. And you can tell probably from this, I'm mostly talking about things like Dharma and lucky cats. I do have an example on the left-hand side, which is, you can actually, if you want to, you can read the description, which is like a money charm that I have purchased that you keep in your wallet, and it's supposed to help you not be troubled with money. I did open it up to see what was in there, and it is a 5-yen coin. 5-yen coins have a certain auspicious nature to them. I'm not going to discuss that, but usually when you're making an offering to a shrine or temple, you're using a 5-yen coin because the word is similar to another word. And then I guess that's kind of how they recycle the coins, is they now have put them in a blessing. You put this particular blessing package in your wallet and carry it around with you. I can honestly say I've gotten 3 of these, 2 of which are like symbol charms as opposed to the money charm. And we have not, knock on wood, had any money problems since we've gotten those. So in my personal experience, it seems to work. I honestly don't know. You are obviously entitled to believe whatever you like to about them. I'm just saying that is another auspicious item. You may be able to get these auspicious items somewhere other than a temple or shrine. The photograph on the top right is just to show that sometimes they sell things in these shops, and in this case I am going to use the word shop, that have no religious significance to them, and they're just cute. I will see if I can find somewhere on my table. Maybe I can find it, maybe I can't. No, I guess I can't find it in a hurry. I have a bookmark that was given to me by a shrine. It's just a bookmark. There's nothing meaningful about it. It was a gift. I have it. I have a hair tie that I got in one of the shops. Sometimes there are just cute little charms and things. So not everything that you find in a temple has a specific meaning to it. It can just be really cute. And again, it's just a way for them to raise money to support themselves. But also, especially in the case of lucky cats, or which is Maneki Neko, but lucky cats and Dharma. So I'm going on to the next slide. So hopefully we can get the slides back up. These are often everywhere in Japan. So on the left-hand side were just more random things you could buy at a shrine. So yes, they do have it's not Barbie, but like a shrine maiden doll, a Ultraman and a bus, and these were for sale in a gift shop because it was a specific children's festival, but they were being sold by the shrine. So like I said, you can buy things there that have no religious or spiritual connotation whatsoever. It's just a way to support them the same way you would with the normal gift shop at any type of tourist attraction. I'm showing examples of lucky cats that are on the images on the right-hand side, and you do need to know that they usually have their left hand raised or their right hand raised. These are usually for businesses, and so they attract customers or they attract money, depending on whether it's their left hand or the right hand. There are also different colors. There are like 8 different colors that have different symbolisms to them. I have gotten lucky cats in gachapon. I have gotten gachapon that are of the little fox messenger mask things. So these are just the same as in English, where we would have, or sorry, not English, in the West, as we would have a lucky rabbit's foot or a 4-leaf clover, or even just like a pin of a 4-leaf clover that symbolizes a 4-leaf clover. These are just luck items that you can use to sort of wish that good things will come into your life. I want you to understand that you can look at all of these in the same way. You can look at going to the shrine and making a prayer or a wish there the same way as you would a wishing well or throwing coins into a fountain. It is the same concept, and it does not necessarily mean that you are invoking a supernatural entity. So I hope that point has gotten across to you. I will say there are another couple of cool, really interesting things that I have. For those of you who saw my festivals and festival food video, you can go back and rewatch it if you haven't. We do have all of our videos available on the Akashicon YouTube, and most of them on the Akashicon website. We are working on getting the rest of them up. This is a festival that was at a shrine. It's called Tori no Ichi, and these are rakes to rake in money and customers. You buy them in the shrine, but you're buying them from artisans who've made them. So is that a religious, is that just auspicious? Is it superstitious? I don't have an answer for you. It's all of the above, and they don't make distinctions like we do. The one on the left is the one I purchased for my husband. It is very small. You are meant to, every year, you would trade it in and get a bigger one and bigger one and bigger one. And you can see from the picture on the top right, they get huge. And then the picture on the bottom right was the pile of the ones that were returned from last year, and at the end of the festival they will ritually retire them. So that's the only picture I have of this return part of the process. Certainly if you go to the festival you can bring all your other stuff with you, not just these rakes, but it is a blend between private practice, so obviously these are just artisans, not monks or priests that create them, but it is part of a festival on a shrine ground. So the edges are very blurred in this process. And finally, I'm just going to show you a picture of my kamidana. Kamidana is the word for that, which basically kind of means house of the kami. Again, kami often gets translated as God, but that's not really accurate. That's one of the possible meanings of it. Now, I very inaccurately kind of threw all the things up there that may have had some kind of spiritual connotation to it that I may not have gotten them at a temple or shrine. And I will show you, as you can see here, this is another symbol that you'll see a lot, even at Daiso, even Daiso in Austin. We just got a magnet with this. This is a lucky dharma. It is a wishing doll. Now, this is originally a Buddhist monk who is said to have meditated for so long his arms and legs fell off, which is why he only has a head. But now it is just considered a luck charm. When you make a wish on the Dharma, you fill in his left eye, and when your wish comes true, you will fill in his right eye. And then at that point, so you'll see on my picture there, you can see I do have one that has both eyes filled in. That was for what? Yeah, Timmy said, the shrine to the smoke alarm. Yeah, the smoke alarm is no longer up there. Husband, probably put that up there again. But you will also notice that there are some of the Emma plaques, some of which were genuinely from a temple and one of which was from a shop outside of a temple. So I personally mix and matched things that had some kind of auspicious meaning, regardless where I got them from. That is probably incorrect. But I really just want to make the point that you can get them from different places. They may have had a religious meaning originally. Lucky Cat and Dharma in particular. Lucky Cat was Shinto in origin. Dharma is Buddhist in origin. But now they're just symbols of things that you can get anywhere. Dollar stores, gachapon, Don Quixote. Amazon, any of that, and that is totally okay to get them there. There's really no problems whatsoever with acquiring these specific symbols. So if you've watched this entire video and you're a little bit uncomfortable with maybe the process of going to a shrine or a temple, or you don't really be involved with any of the religious practices, you can still participate and ask for luck by getting some of these symbols that have now become secular. If you're interested in anything else that I have up there on the Kamidana, I would be happy to tell you about it another time, but we have really exhausted quite a bit of time today talking about this. I thought this would be a quick show, but boy, was I wrong. I am happy to take any other questions or comments. If you have anything else that you would like to ask me, if you would like to see more of my stuff, I can show you more, because my goodness. Oh yeah, here, I found it. This was the hair tie that I bought at a shrine. There is nothing religious about it. It's just a cute hair tie. And I did have long hair at one point, and now I don't anymore. So it's still sitting in a bag. But yeah, you can, even the like kitsune, inori masks are now, like the one that I have up there. Again, I put it underneath the kamidana in the picture, but that is from a costume, a kids department. Is the kids section at a discount store is where I purchased it from. So it did originally have religious connotation. It no longer does. It is a completely secular item. That's kind of when I put it below the kamidana, with my quilt that has kimono on it. So I would like to thank everyone for your time today. We know that you have a lot of choices of what to do, especially as the world is opening back up again. And we really appreciate you spending time with us here at AkashiCon Online. We are back to our regular streaming schedule. So at least for my programs, I will be doing Japan Stories, which is the fourth Sunday of the month at 2 p.m. Central US time. I do not quite know what the next episode is going to be. I am happy to take your suggestions. If it's something I haven't covered already, and then I kind of know at least a little bit what I'm talking about, I'm happy to research it. If it's something that I've experienced, I'm happy to tell you about it. I have some topics in mind, but I'm not quite sure what you may be interested in. Certainly, I don't know if you might be interested in learning like what to pack for Japan, if you're planning on going, or things that you need to buy to take with you, or things that you shouldn't take with you because they're cheaper to get over there. That's an idea that I have that you may or may not be interested in. Let me know. And certainly also on the second Monday of every month is Make Your Monday. We definitely have exciting things coming up once again. They are usually Japanese craft, although last time we did do obento, and that is available. You can watch it here on Twitch. You can watch replays here on Twitch, or you can watch it on our YouTube. And we did talk a little bit about making bento, which are boxed lunches. Next time we will be talking about Ita bags and decorating them. So not so much making Ita bags, but how to decorate them and how to customize them. We will be talking about other things such as needle felting, Japanese marbling called suminagashi. I have a whole series of topics that are in the works for that particular show. So those are things that are going to be going on every month here at AkashiCon Online. And hopefully we will be back in person next year. And that'll probably be the end of our online for a bit, but we certainly have another 8 months to go here on Twitch. So we hope that you will join us. We really appreciate you. Please, if you have not already, go ahead and hit the follow button, and then if you have the Twitch app on any of your devices, it will notify you when we're going live on those 2 times. And if you are an Amazon Prime member and do not already have a subscription to Twitch channel, I would really appreciate it if you could go in, and you have to go in a desktop version. You can't do this in the app, but you can go in and say where it says subscribe, and this is like a monetary subscription. Say subscribe, and then it'll give you a drop down and say use free Prime subscription. And that gives us just a little bit of money. It helps to cover our costs. We do have some software costs that are associated with running this program. Obviously, we're not going to charge you for it, but we are a nonprofit, so donations are appreciated. Wow, and that was a light falling down just in front of the camera telling me it is definitely time to go. So thank you very much. I hope to see you next month here for Japan Stories, and I absolutely would love it if you would join us for Make Your Monday as well. So thanks again, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.